Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today with a feeling that I think you, the listener, are probably intimately, maybe even painfully familiar with.
Oh, I think I know where this is going.
We probably do. It's that specific sensation of modern vertigo. You know the one. You're sitting at your desk, you have 40 unread emails, your Slack is just pinging like a slot machine.
The kitchen sink is leaking at home, your kid has a fever.
Yes, exactly. And you have this creeping, cold suspicion that you are slowly but surely losing your grip on the steering wheel.
Yeah, that is the entropy of everyday life. It's the feeling that the sheer complexity of your environment has just completely exceeded your cognitive capacity to manage it.
That is exactly it. It feels like you're drowning in data and demands. And usually when we talk about this, whether it's in books or articles, we get these fluffy platitudes, just breathe or make time for yourself.
Right, practice mindfulness.
Practice mindfulness, exactly. And I'm not saying those are bad things, but when your boss is demanding a report in an hour and your roof is actively leaking, breathe is not a strategy.
No, it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
It's totally insufficient because it addresses the symptom, not the root cause.
Right. So today's stack of research is different. It's gritty. We are looking at a massive collection of case studies, personal anecdotes, and really specific scenarios involving a super diverse cast of characters. We've got Daniel, Sarah, Michael, Olivia, Henry, Laura, a whole group of professionals, friends, and neighbors.
And on the surface, their stories seem pretty mundane, honestly.
Totally. We're talking about fixing a leaking sink, dealing with a passive-aggressive email, missing a train, or trying to renovate a kitchen without getting a divorce.
But that's the trick, right? It sounds mundane when you list them like that. But when you actually analyze the decision-making processes within these specific stories, you realize we aren't just looking at household chores or office admin.
Yeah, we really are.
We are looking at a masterclass in human effectiveness.
Yep.
We are analyzing the delta, the gap between the people who freeze when the train gets canceled and the people who treat it as a tactical puzzle to be solved.
And that is our mission for today's deep dive. We want to take these varied experiences and distill them into a practical toolkit. Because the premise here is that navigating modern life, whether you are in a high-stakes corporate boardroom or just trying to get dinner on the table without burning the house down, requires a very specific set of skills.
Skills that are often, and quite wrongly, categorized.
Yes, the dreaded soft skills. I think it's a terrible name.
It is a massive misnomer. I've always hated the term soft skills. There is literally nothing soft about de-escalating a client who is screaming at you, or rewiring a router when you have a massive deadline in 10 minutes.
It's hard work.
It is. These are hard cognitive functions. We're talking emotional regulation, executive control, probabilistic thinking. These are survival skills.
Survival skills for the information age. I love that. So we are going to look at the psychology of time management, the art of precise communication, the logic of troubleshooting, and the foundations of leadership.
All drawn from these real-world anecdotes.
Right. And the goal is to figure out why some people, like the really effective characters in our source material, manage to thrive in chaos, while the rest of us just want to crawl under the desk and panic.
That's the core distinction we're looking for today, the difference between the panic response and the strategic response. And what's fascinating about this stack of sources is that it shows this distinction across such a wide variety of contexts.
You see the same mental muscle being used to handle a corporate crisis as you do to handle a flat tire.
Exactly.
So let's jump right into the deep end. Segment 1. The psychology of pressure and time management. We have all been there. The impossible deadline.
Ah, a classic stress test.
Right. So our first case study here is Daniel. Let's paint the picture for you. Daniel works at a tech company. Very fast-paced environment, super high expectations. It's a Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. He's sipping his coffee, thinking he has a handle on the day.
A dangerous thought.
Truly. Then the notification dings. It's an urgent email from his VP. The VP needs a comprehensive analysis of Q3 data, and he needs it for a board meeting at 11 a.m.
So he gets a task that would normally take, maybe 6 hours, and he has exactly 2 hours to do it.
Correct. Now, before we get to what Daniel actually did, I want to pause on what Daniel felt. Because the source material actually describes the physiology of this moment, which I found fascinating. He didn't just think, oh, this is tight. He felt a physical wave of nausea.
Yeah.
His vision actually narrowed. His hands got cold.
That is the classic amygdala hijack. It is so crucial to understand that your brain, evolutionarily speaking, is running on incredibly outdated software.
It thinks it's still in the savannah.
Exactly. It cannot distinguish between my boss sent a scary email And there is a literal tiger in the room. The threat response is identical. Cortisol floods the system, your heart rate spikes, and blood is actually diverted away from the prefrontal cortex.
And that's the part of your brain that makes plans and understands logic, right?
Right. Blood is diverted away from there and into your major muscle groups.
Which is the cruel irony of stress, isn't it? The exact moment you need your brain the most to analyze data and write a complex report, your body is actively shutting it down to prepare you to punch something or run away.
Precisely. You become cognitively impaired, literally, in that moment.
Yeah.
Your working memory shrinks. And this is where most people just spiral.
They stare at the screen.
They stare, they tab switch, they open the document, close it, check Slack, check their phone. They're just paralyzed by the magnitude of the threat.
I call that the doom loop. You're too stressed to work, which makes you more behind, which makes you more stressed. But Daniel didn't stay in that state.
No, he didn't.
He utilized a specific mechanism. He immediately stopped looking at the whole project. He physically turned away from his monitor for a second, took a deep breath, and grabbed a physical notepad. And he broke the task down into 3 micro steps.
Now, this sounds trivial, right? Make a list.
Right.
But from a neurological perspective, it's a massive power move.
Really, just writing a list.
Yes. Because when you look at a massive task with a short deadline, your brain perceives it as a monolithic threat. It's a predator. It's simply too big to fight. But by breaking it down, Daniel engaged in what psychologists call cognitive offloading.
Okay, break that down for us. What is actually happening in the brain when he writes step 1, open Excel?
He is shifting his cognitive processing. He is moving the problem from the emotional center of the brain, the amygdala, back to the prefrontal cortex, which handles executive function.
Oh, wow.
He is taking the threat out of his mind, where it feels infinite and vague, and putting it on paper, where it is finite and concrete. The amygdala sees write giant report and screams impossible, but it sees open Excel and filter by Q3 and says, oh, okay, I can do that.
So instead of save the company, his list was literally 1, pull data for Q3, 2, draft summary paragraph, 3, format charts.
Exactly. He focused on priority points, and crucially, he eliminated distractions. He didn't check his email every 5 minutes to see if the VP was asking about it. He didn't look at his phone. He entered a state of deep work.
And the result? He finished it. He sent it off with 5 minutes to spare. And he described the feeling afterward not just as relief, but as incredible satisfaction.
That satisfaction is so interesting. It's almost like the dopamine hit you get from checking off a to-do list, but magnified 100 times because the stakes were so high.
It is. It's the realization that you have agency.
Right.
Because panic strips you of agency. It makes you feel like a passive victim of circumstance. But breaking a task down restores your agency.
Yes. You are in control of step 1, even if you aren't totally sure you can finish step 10 yet. And that dopamine hit from finishing step 1 gives you the literal chemical fuel to attack step 2. He essentially gamified his panic attack.
Gamified his panic attack. I absolutely love that phrasing. Now, this connects perfectly to another myth that our sources really dismantle, the multitasking myth. We have a case study here involving Laura.
Right, Laura. She was facing a slightly different dilemma than Daniel. She had 2 major projects, both due at the exact same time, and both were highly important.
And the instinct in that situation, and I think we literally all do this, is to try and do both at once. You know, you have dual monitors going, you write a sentence for project A, then you alt-tab and check a spreadsheet for project B.
You're trying to keep all the balls in the air.
Yeah.
We wear that kind of multitasking like a badge of honor in our culture. Oh, I'm a great multitasker.
But the research tells us that nobody is a great multitasker.
Nobody. The human brain cannot parallel process complex cognitive tasks. It's a biological impossibility. What you are actually doing is task switching, and every single time you switch from project A to project B, you pay a cognitive tax.
Is this related to attention residue? Because I've read a bit about that.
Exactly that. Sophia Leroy's research on attention residue is fascinating. When you switch tasks, a part of your brain is literally still stuck on the previous task.
Like it can't let go.
Right. It's like closing a program on your computer, but the process is still running in the background, eating up your RAM. Laura's husband actually gave her some advice here, which perfectly aligns with this research. He suggested she split her work into focused sessions.
So instead of the chaotic toggling back and forth, she did Project A for 45 minutes, complete stop. Then Project B for 45 minutes.
Precisely. It's about minimizing that context switching cost. By doing focus sessions, Laura was able to finish both projects successfully because she wasn't wasting mental energy on the transition. She allowed her brain to fully load the rules and context for Project A, stay there, and then completely unload it before moving on. It's just far more efficient.
We see a really similar strategy with Henry, but his stakes were more personal. Henry had a massive work report due, but he also had a major family event, a birthday party, or something similar on the same day.
This is the classic work-life balance struggle that destroys so many weekends. Usually people try to do both, and they do both poorly.
Right. They go to the family event, but they are physically present and mentally completely absent. They're checking emails under the table, they're nodding at their aunt while thinking about a pivot table.
And the result is you do a mediocre job on the report because you're distracted by the party, and you're a terrible family member because you're distracted by the report. Nobody wins. You just feel guilty the whole time.
But Henry took a more rigid approach. He created a schedule with strictly allocated time blocks.
He said, from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., I am at work. From 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., I am at the party. No phone.
This is the discipline of presence. When he was in the work block, he was 100% at work. No guilt about the family, because he knew he had a dedicated slot for them later. And when he was at the family event, he was 100% present. He wasn't half there.
And the outcome was that he actually managed to do both efficiently. It sounds so simple, right? But it requires a lot of mental discipline to not let those worlds bleed into each other. It's all about boundaries.
It is, but the cost of not doing it is that continuous partial attention state where you just feel exhausted and ineffective everywhere. Henry's story reminds us that boundaries aren't just for protecting other people, they are for protecting our own cognitive performance.
Absolutely.
Speaking of performance, let's talk about Blake. Our source material mentions Blake facing a really high-stakes meeting, an important presentation, and he was absolutely terrified.
Which is completely natural. Public speaking is consistently ranked as one of the top human fears. Sometimes higher than death, strangely enough.
But his strategy wasn't just try to calm down or imagine the audience in their underwear, which is terrible advice, by the way.
The worst advice.
He operationalized his preparation, he rehearsed out loud, he timed the speech, he imagines the specific questions people might ask him.
This is what elite athletes call visualization and stress inoculation. You see, anxiety often comes from the unknown. The brain asks, what if I stumble? What if I run over my allotted time? What if the CFO asks me about the budget discrepancy? These are all open loops.
And open loops generate anxiety.
Exactly. By rehearsing out loud, and the out loud part is key because it builds physical muscle memory in your jaw and vocal cords. And by anticipating those tough questions, Blake closed those loops. He removed the unknowns. He essentially desensitized himself to the event before it even happened.
So confidence isn't just a personality trait in this context. It's not about just being a natural extrovert.
No, not at all. Confidence is a byproduct of preparation. You don't get confident to give the speech. You prepare the speech to get confident. Blake walked into that room knowing exactly where the landmines were, so he wasn't afraid of stepping on them.
Confidence is a byproduct of preparation. I want to tattoo that on my forehead. Okay, so we've got our heads right, we're organized, we're focused, we're prepared, but now we have to deal with the one variable we can never fully control.
Other people.
Exactly, other people. Let's move to segment 2, the art of precision communication, because a lot of the stress in these case studies comes from miscommunication.
Or the complete lack of communication.
Yeah, right. Let's look at Michael and the German client. This is such a great example of catching a problem before it actually becomes a problem.
Context is key here.
Yeah.
Michael is in a big meeting. He's presenting a proposal. And he notices the client looks a bit unsure about a certain point. Just a slight furrow of the brow. A crossed arm. Now, the easy thing to do, the path of least resistance, is to just ignore it. Just keep plowing ahead with the slides and hope they figure it out.
I think 99% of us do that. You think, I'll just get through the presentation and we can deal with questions at the end. I don't want to disrupt my flow.
Exactly. It feels awkward to stop. It feels like you're inviting trouble. But Michael didn't do that. He stopped. He pivoted. He asked a direct, clarifying question. I'm sensing some hesitation on this point. Does this align with your internal data?
That seems really risky to some people. They think asking, did that make sense, makes them look weak or unclear, like it invites an objection.
But it invites the objection that is already there. Yeah. That's the key distinction. If he ignores that furrowed brow, the client walks away confused. Maybe they don't sign the deal. Or worse, maybe they sign it thinking it includes something it doesn't, and it blows up 3 months later. By asking the question right then, Michael creates psychological safety.
He's basically saying, I value your understanding of this more than I value my own monologue.
Precisely. And in doing so, he prevented a massive cascade of misunderstandings. He built trust. He showed he was attuned to the nonverbal cues. This actually touches on the sociological difference between high-context and low-context cultures.
Oh, right.
In some cultures, you are expected to read between the lines. Michael was operating in a high-context mode, reading the room, not just reading the script.
Now, what happens when the conflict is already out in the open? It's not just a confused look. It's a full-blown argument. We have a case study here with Sarah's marketing team. Two team members totally at odds on a campaign approach.
This is a classic deadlock. Person A wants blue, person B wants red. Usually this just devolves into a power struggle or a shouting match. Or, honestly worse, passive-aggressive silence where nothing gets done.
But Sarah stepped in as a mediator. And look at her technique. She didn't just listen to both sides and act like a judge picking a winner.
No, she facilitated a meeting where each side presented their ideas without interruption. And she used a technique that's very similar to steel manning.
Steel manning. I know straw manning, but what's steel manning? That's the opposite, right?
Correct. In a straw man argument, you misrepresent your opponent's view to make it super easy to attack. Oh, you want red because you hate creativity.
Yeah.
In a steel man, you have to describe your opponent's view so well and so fairly that they look at you and say, yes, that is exactly what I mean. Sarah made them listen until they understood the opposing viewpoint perfectly.
That without interruption rule is so transformative. It forces the other person to actually listen rather than just silently rehearsing their rebuttal while the other person is talking.
And the result wasn't just some watered-down compromise where everyone is unhappy. It was a true hybrid solution. They found a way to combine the best elements of both ideas. This is the real definition of synergy, a word that gets terribly overused in corporate speak. But here it's totally accurate. The final outcome was literally better than either original idea. Sarah turned a conflict into creation.
We see another form of de-escalation with James, and this one is digital, which is so common now. A client reacted really defensively to an email James sent. They totally misinterpreted the tone.
Email is just a minefield for tone. It is so incredibly easy to sound cold or aggressive when you are honestly just trying to be efficient. So the client gets upset. Now, James could have easily gotten defensive back. I didn't say that. You're reading it wrong. Learn to read.
That's the knee-jerk reaction. It's an ego defense.
Right. But that just escalates the conflict. James did two brilliant things. First, he switched mediums. He picked up the phone and called immediately. He got out of the text trap and into voice, where tone can actually be managed and heard. Second, he used very specific phrasing. He said, I apologize if my email was unclear.
That is such a power move. I apologize if I was unclear.
He took full responsibility for the clarity rather than blaming the client for the misunderstanding. Even if James felt in his heart that his email was perfectly fine and the client was being overly sensitive, taking that hit de-escalated the situation instantly. It allows the client to save face. It reestablishes the partnership.
It's the difference between needing to be right and needing to be effective. James chose to be effective.
Correct. In business and in marriage, honestly, you can be right or you can be happy. Often you cannot be both.
Speaking of marriage and happiness, let's talk about domestic diplomacy, because this is a huge theme in these sources. We have Henry again, our time-blocking hero from earlier dealing with household chores.
Ah, the eternal battleground.
Tension was really building. He and his wife were both unhappy with the division of labor. The resentment was just cooking under the surface.
And again, the typical response here is to let that resentment build up for weeks until you finally explode over a dirty coffee mug. You never help. I do everything around here.
Yeah.
It becomes a highly emotional argument about who cares more. But Henry, applying his effective mindset, suggested a calm discussion outside of a moment of conflict. They sat down, they listed the responsibilities, and they assigned them fairly.
It sounds like they treated the household like a small business.
And why shouldn't they? A household is an organization. It has logistics, it has supply chains, maintenance, a budget. Treating it with professional respect, sitting down, listing tasks, negotiating, is far more effective than emotional bickering. It removes the personal attack feeling from the equation entirely. It becomes a logistics problem to solve together, not a love problem that means your relationship is failing.
We also have the dinner party story. A host was coordinating dietary restrictions for a large group of friends.
Now, this seems small, but it's actually a form of high-level inclusivity. Instead of just guessing or just serving one big dish and hoping for the best, the host asked every single person individually in advance.
It's verify understanding, just like Michael with the German client.
Exactly. It makes the guests feel safe and respected before they even arrive. And practically, it prevents the crisis of serving peanuts to someone with a severe allergy. It's proactive care instead of reactive apologizing.
This bleeds perfectly into our final point on communication: cultural and contextual awareness. We have Thomas, who is traveling abroad for work, and he noticed the dining etiquette was very different.
Right, and he didn't just blunder through it or arrogantly assume his way was the right way. He explicitly asked his local colleagues for guidance. Hey, how do we do this here? It shows such humility.
And Olivia, who was negotiating with the tricky client, she realized that listening wasn't just about hearing the words they were saying, it was listening for hidden values.
This is the iceberg theory of negotiation. In a negotiation, people almost always talk about price. That's the tip of the iceberg sticking out of the water. But Olivia realized through active listening that the client was actually terrified about delivery time and quality assurance. Those were the massive parts of the iceberg hidden underwater. By addressing those hidden values, the anxieties underneath the price objection, she unlocked the deal.
So she wasn't just haggling over a number, she was solving their underlying anxiety.
She was decoding their true priorities. That is what precision communication actually is. It's not just speaking clearly, it's hearing what isn't being explicitly said.
Okay, so we've played our time and we're communicating like top-tier diplomats, but eventually things break. Entropy comes for us all.
It inevitably does. The universe tends toward disorder.
Segment 3, the troubleshooter's mindset, or as I like to call it, MacGyvering your life. We have a whole cluster of stories here involving DIY repairs. Henry and the bad Wi-Fi, Laura and the leaking sink, Emma and the flat tire.
These are fantastic because they represent a direct battle against a psychological barrier called learned helplessness.
Break that down for us. What is learned helplessness?
Learned helplessness is the conditioned belief that you are simply unable to change your circumstances. For many people, when the Wi-Fi breaks, the immediate automatic thought is, I am not a tech person. I need to call someone. When the sink leaks, I am not a plumber. I need to hire help.
You outsource the solution immediately. You assume the problem is basically magic and you need a certified wizard to fix it.
Right. But Henry, Laura, and Emma all took a completely different path. They engaged in self-efficacy. Henry didn't call his ISP right away. He checked the router. He restarted it. He logged in and managed the bandwidth. Laura researched the specific leak under her sink, found the source, went to the hardware store, and fixed it with her husband. Emma literally followed a step-by-step YouTube guide on the side of the road to change her tire rather than waiting 2 hours for a tow truck.
It's the DIY approach, but you're saying it's much deeper than just saving $50 on a plumber or a mechanic.
Oh, it's much deeper. It is the profound psychological boost of realizing that the physical world is understandable. Machines function on logic. If you observe and apply logic, you can influence the machine. When Emma changes that tire, she isn't just fixing a car, she is proving to her own brain that she is capable of handling an unexpected crisis. And that confidence transfers.
It transfers, like, to other areas of her life.
Absolutely. In psychology, we call it generalization. The next time she has a completely unrelated problem at work, say a really complex spreadsheet error, she's far less likely to panic because she has recent tangible evidence that she is a solver, not a victim. She implicitly thinks, hey, I changed a tire on the side of the highway in the rain. I can definitely figure out this data set.
It's the troubleshooter's mindset. Observation, logic, action. It reminds me of the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act.
Exactly. It's a universal framework for problem solving.
And this mindset applies to big life decisions too. Not just broken physical things, but uncertain abstract things. We have Daniel again, our busy guy from the first segment, choosing between two major job offers. High pay and long hours versus slightly lower pay, better growth, and real work-life balance.
Decision-making under uncertainty is one of the hardest things human beings do. We are absolutely terrified of making the wrong choice. We suffer from massive decision fatigue.
But Daniel used a tool. He didn't just go with his gut feeling or flip a coin. He created a strict priorities list. Long-term goals versus short-term gain.
He externalized the decision. He got it out of his swirling head and put it on paper. This helps separate the raw emotion from the objective facts. We see this with the apartment search story in the source's two-way commute time against living space size.
It's about making decisions based on values rather than just metrics. The metric is money or square footage. The value is work-life balance or peace of mind.
And when you make a decision based on core values, you rarely regret it. Even if the job turns out to be hard, you know why you took it. You have an anchor. If you just take it for the money and you're miserable, you resent it instantly. Daniel chose the growth and balance because it aligned with who he explicitly wanted to be. He was satisficing, finding the solution that met his specific criteria rather than maximizing or stressing himself out trying to find the elusive, mathematically perfect choice.
Now, the ultimate test of all these skills, troubleshooting, decision-making, keeping your cool under pressure, is travel.
Travel is the great chaos generator. You are completely out of your element, you're usually on a strict timeline, and you are totally dependent on complex systems you don't control.
We have Anna. She's on a highly anticipated trip, and her train gets flat out canceled. Nightmare scenario. You're stranded in a foreign city with all your luggage.
For many people, that ruins the entire day, maybe the whole trip. You sit on the platform and fume, you yell at the ticketing agent who has no control over it, you think, this shouldn't be happening to me. You are actively arguing with reality.
But Anna pivoted. She accepted the new reality immediately. She said, the train is gone. Okay, what are the alternatives? She found a different route, and in the process, she actually discovered a local cafe she would have completely missed otherwise.
This is a concept called radical acceptance. It's about shortening the refractory period.
The refractory period, explain that.
It's the amount of time between the emotional trigger, the canceled train, and your return to a baseline state of calm and logic. For some people, that period is 5 minutes. For others, it's 5 hours or even 5 days. Highly successful travelers and really highly successful people in general have a very short refractory period. They don't waste precious cognitive energy wishing the train wasn't canceled. That is a sunk cost. They accept it instantly and move to problem solving.
We see this exact thing with David and his wife when they found the blocked hiking trail, too. They didn't complain. They just found a scenic detour after asking some locals for advice. And Emma, who locked herself out of her house, she calmly called a locksmith and coordinated with her husband for spare keys.
No drama, just problem solving.
It's the panic versus pause response again. Now what? Is arguably the most powerful question you can ask in a crisis.
Exactly. Not why me, but now what?
So we've covered the individual skills, but none of us operate in a vacuum. We work in teams. We live in families. Let's move to segment 4, leadership, teamwork, and growth.
This is where it all really comes together. Because you can be a ninja at time management, but if you can't lead or collaborate, your ceiling is very, very low.
We have a really great definition of leadership emerging from these stories. Let's look at Olivia's consulting project. Her team was completely stuck. The data was incomplete. Deadlines were looming. The vibe was just generally bad.
Notice what she didn't do in that moment. She didn't start shouting. She didn't threaten their jobs. And crucially, she didn't just take all the work away from them and do it herself, which is a massive trap for high performers who get promoted to management.
The martyr leader. I'll just do it myself because you guys are too slow or too incompetent.
Right. Which destroys team morale and guarantees you will burn out. Instead, Olivia held a meeting to identify the critical missing tasks and redistribute responsibility based on capacity. She provided clarity. She acted as a friction remover.
We see this with David's delegation, too, where he managed a complex project by identifying individual strengths and assigning tasks accordingly, avoiding micromanagement entirely, and Thomas organizing the charity event. He created these clear instruction guides for the volunteers.
The recurring theme here is that true leadership is about clarity, not control. Effective leadership often looks like removing obstacles and providing a map. Thomas didn't just say, go volunteer, figure it out. That's vague and stressful. He gave them a guide. He made it incredibly easy for them to succeed. Olivia didn't just yell, work harder. She clarified what they needed to work on.
It's servant leadership. You are serving the team by clearing the path in front of them.
Exactly. You are the snowplow, not the driver.
And when the team is working well, you get collaborative success. Daniel had this team-building exercise. They were building some sort of structure with really limited materials.
A classic corporate retreat exercise. And they failed miserably at first. Their designs completely collapsed.
But they didn't turn on each other.
No, they paused. They discussed why it failed. And they actively leveraged individual strength. Hey, you're good at stability, you handle the base, you're good at design, you plan the top. We see the exact same collaborative dynamic with Sarah and her husband renovating their kitchen.
Now that one is dangerous. Kitchen renovations are notorious for destroying marriages. The dust, the endless decisions, the money.
They really do. But they survived it by dividing tasks based on their natural strengths. I'll handle the painting because I have patience for the detail work. You handle sourcing the appliances because you love doing deep dive research. They turned a highly stressful project into a remarkably smooth one because they weren't constantly stepping on each other's toes. They respected each other's domain.
Finally, running through literally all of this is the concept of the growth mindset, the fundamental willingness to learn new things. We have Mark with the new company software.
Mark didn't avoid the confusing new tool like most people do. He leaned right into it. He held a workshop. He created a simple, plain English guide. He taught it to his peers, which, by the way, is the absolute best way to learn anything. This is neuroplasticity in action. He refused to let his brain calcify.
And James learning how to cook, failing at complex recipes, burning the sauce.
But analyzing the mistake instead of throwing in the towel. Why did it burn? Okay, the heat was too high. Try again. He didn't internalize it and say, I'm just a bad cook. He objectively said, I used too much heat. He separated his core identity from his temporary failure.
And Adam and David learning a new language, recording themselves speaking, listening to the recording back.
Oh, that is painful.
Yeah.
Listening to your own voice, struggling and stumbling with a new language, that takes real ego strength. That is deliberate practice. It's supposed to be hard. If it isn't hard and uncomfortable, you aren't actually learning.
And the gardener story, Michael and Sarah observing their wilting plants. Is it the sunlight? Is it the soil pH? Adjust and see what happens.
This is the recurring loop of high effectiveness across all these domains. Observation, analysis, adjustment. Mastery isn't magic. It is simply the willingness to correct errors repeatedly over time. Whether it's learning a software, cooking a meal, speaking Spanish, or keeping a plant alive, you have to be willing to be bad at it long enough to eventually get good at it.
That is such a crucial point. We often look at people like Daniel or Olivia in these stories, and we just assume they're just naturally good at stuff. We think they were born organized or born as leaders. But the stories explicitly show them struggling. They show them facing the impossible deadline, the angry client, the broken sink. The difference isn't that they don't have problems. It's the toolkit they proactively use to solve them.
Precisely. It is a learned set of behaviors, not a genetic gift. And as we see mentioned with Rachel's students accepting feedback and practicing, it applies to everyone.
So let's bring this all home. Let's synthesize this toolkit. If we look at our masterclass on human effectiveness, derived from all these friends, neighbors, and professionals,
We can really boil it down to 5 core verbs.
okay.
First, plan. Just like Daniel with his impossible report. Break the monster down into pieces. Shift your biology from panic to execution.
Second, listen. Like Michael with the German client. Don't assume. Verify understanding. Ask the scary clarifying question.
Third, solve. Like Henry with the router. Don't be helpless. Investigate. Use logic. Remember that you have agency over your environment.
Fourth, adapt. Like Anna with the canceled train. The plan is broken. Fine. Find the alternative route. Don't waste energy mourning the old plan.
And finally, grow. Like James in the kitchen or Rachel's students. Accept feedback. Analyze your errors without ego. Practice.
Plan, listen, solve, adapt, grow. It sounds like a corporate mission statement, but as we've seen, it's actually how you survive a chaotic family dinner or a leaky pipe.
That is the ultimate meta lesson here. These aren't just work skills or home skills, they are life skills. The neural pathways you build when you calmly handle a flat tire on the side of the road are the exact same ones you use when you navigate a massive crisis at work. How you do anything is how you do everything.
That is a scary thought, but also a deeply empowering one. It means every small crisis is just practice for the big ones.
Exactly. Every frustration is just another rep in the gym of character.
So here is the provocative thought we want to leave you with today. We've talked a lot about Daniel, Sarah, Olivia, and the rest, but this is really about you, the listener. The next time you face a minor crisis, and let's be real, it will happen, probably today. Maybe the router is slow. Maybe you get a highly passive-aggressive email. Maybe you're stuck in dead-stop traffic.
In that exact moment, you have a choice. It happens in a split second.
Will you choose panic? Will you choose the default emotional reaction? Or will you choose the strategic pause? Will you take a breath, look at the problem objectively, and say, okay, let's break this down?
The entire quality of your life might just depend on that answer.
Something to really think about the next time the Wi-Fi goes out.
Thanks for diving deep into the sources with us.
A pleasure as always.